Hello and welcome to another episode of Mic'd Up with Mas, our exclusive podcast series where Team Mas chats with industry experts on all things app marketing. A new financial year is upon us and brings with it exciting times for the fintech industry across Southeast Asia. FY23 is all about expanding the scope of digital finances, creating a host of opportunities for app marketers to thrive in the region. So, how do you plan your FinTech UA roadmap for the year ahead? In this episode, Mudasir Bashir, Business Director for MAS in Malaysia, Singapore, and Philippines, catches up with Happy Marketers Director of Performance Marketing, Vishal Thakur, to get some answers. Over to you, Mudasir.
Hey Vishal, a very warm welcome to this episode of Mic'd Up with Mass. Really excited to have you here, and I'm sure it's going to be important and insightful for our listeners to hear from your point of view as well. Again, a very warm welcome.
Thanks, Moody. I'm very excited to be part of this because this is my first podcast kind of a thing which I'm participating. So, yeah, very excited and as well nervous as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Not a problem. We are excited to have you here as well. So just before we get into today's discussion, just want you to tell our listeners about yourself and the work you do over at Happy Marketer.
Sure. Hi, folks. I am Vishal Thakur. I am head of programmatic at Happy Marketer. So just to add little, today I just completed my 4 year. So I just getting a lot of good wishes from my colleagues and everyone today from all across the team that I work with, wishing me on my 4th year with Happy Marketer. So it has been a very exciting journey for the last 4 years, where, as you know, Happy Marketer has been an independent agency for a decade in Singapore, as our founder Rachit started the company back in 2010, and we have been in the very good position after the acquisition because got acquired by Merkle, which is part of Dentsu. So in 2018 we got acquired and we are almost in the verge of becoming a Merkle company. So yeah, that's how we are, and we are forcibly seeing a good part and good growth from being a part of Dentsu network.
Wonderful, wonderful. Congratulations on completing 4 years, Vishal. And also, there has been a lot of work that we've done over the past few years. And clearly, I can second that statement that the growth for Happy Marketer has been brilliant, and how it has added value by being a part of the Dentsu group is definitely remarkable. Now, today, our discussion is basically going to be around fintech in Southeast Asia. And the first thing I want to ask Vishal is that the finance season is still on, and there's a lot of conversation going around the digitization of finances and wealth management. How do you see the Southeast Asian fintech revolution panning out in this year, 2022?
Fortunately or unfortunately, I think COVID has been a catalyst for the whole fintech adoption across Southeast Asia market. To be very honest, because that's how the whole demand for digital payment capabilities, virtual banking experience, and a lot other brands adopting to new ways of financing and providing those accessibilities to have the brand's usage with not worrying about the financial part or the cash part in nature has the big revolution from my perspective. And seeing that growth in the last couple of years, I see that 22 is not going to be behind. It is almost going to show 100x growth in the numbers across couple of markets, which I see. Like, for example, let's take as a digital payment as one of the service, the way we have seen in every market, right? For example, like Singapore itself, like Pay Now itself has seen a 200% growth already in the whole overall COVID period from 2019 till 21. You see, like Pay Now or other payment features are taking the higher usage. The usage is definitely growing a lot. Just putting my personal experience, to be very honest. As you know, I had been stuck in India due to the COVID
Yep.
for a couple of months, and I am back in Singapore. I was back in Singapore in November, and till November from now till today till date, I've just had to go twice to an ATM to withdraw money, and the rest of the things I've been managing through doing my all the usage of my payments and everything just through Pay Now or my with any Grab Pay or digital wallets. So from that experience, I'm saying, like, even today, going to an hawker center and getting a food, I don't need to have a cash in my hand. I can just use my Grab Pay wallet, or I can just use the Pay Now option to do the cashless transaction. So from that perspective, if that is going at that grassroots level, then definitely the revolution is there, right? So because everyone is adopting that feasibility and the convenience to use and have a cashless transaction today.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in fact, you were very right about the COVID pandemic kind of accelerating this growth, which is I think the silver lining right now that we can look at. And there's been emergence of digital payment formats as well. For example, the BNPL. Buy now, pay later, which has really emerged as the way forward in a lot of these markets that you and me are working in Southeast Asia. So definitely the revolution is going in the right direction for this year as well. And I think totally 100x, I'd say 200x growth is possible. Now, just touching upon on the same thing, and before we get deeper into this conversation in a technical way, do you see fintech encouraging financial inclusivity among the underbanked, especially in Southeast Asia?
I totally agree to that. The short answer is yes, it is, and it's really helping a lot of people who are using banking just the way of the traditional banking, but from that perspective, I think it has become an alternative, or on, not just an alternative, but as a primary way of using the banking facilities in most of the markets. Like, for example, if I talk about Philippines, as it's one of the closest market that I work with in that. And as you know, apart from the metro cities of Metro Manila or Cebu, apart from that, there are a lot of province areas where there are a lot of opportunity for the underbanked audiences, right? And that's where the brands like Gcash and everyone has tapped into that opportunity from the day one, I would say, right? That's what I see the growth. So from, like, this is a going joke or conversation that we have in my team, that in short, yesterday's underbank are today's growth audience and tomorrow's customers.
Very true. Yeah, exactly. I think what has changed is really the accessibility. You talk about areas or regions outside of metropolitan cities and towns. Definitely, the accessibility to a banking service was kind of limited in the larger Southeast Asian markets. If we just pick by population, Philippines and Indonesia. So you would imagine the level of underbanked people we would have had, but just trend of e-banking or app-based banking has really helped drive that access to pretty much anyone and everyone, and they don't have to go through the usual red tape of getting bank accounts and having to look for a branch and so on and so forth. So this has definitely made it easier. Now, with traditional finance models where we have banks, we have insurance companies, we have investment companies, now with them moving into the app ecosystem, right? How do you see the old version stacking against the new? And in the new, we've got crypto, we've got neobanks, we've got e-wallets, etc. How do you see them stacking up against each other in terms of user behavior?
I think from the way we see, like, crypto definitely is buzz in all these markets. Definitely everyone is so intrigued with the cryptos, the way the kind of growth that they have seen. To be very honest, I'm still on personal perspective, I'm still concerned whether it's a good idea to invest in crypto or not, because I'm not a crypto investor at the moment. But I still think a lot of people have adapted to that, and they still think cryptocurrency doing that with the help of the whole fintech solution that we have, right? And the way the accessibilities is coming in, and a lot of educations that all these crypto tech companies are putting behind, right? We in every sector, in every market, in Southeast Asia, there are minimum 10 or 15 startups who are providing that education factors, the learnings for the individual people. So which I think is quite important, because it's definitely a new thing for the people to use, invest and everything, and to drive the education and the usage of it. It's very important, because that's how the behavior change will happen. But most interesting part is the neo banking, right? Because definitely the younger ones are very good with the tech and everything, but the older one who are getting used to this new way of banking is definitely commensurable. Because I imagining my dad back in India doing a banking through his phone app was a big challenge for him, right? So he can't do it. He gets into some kind of a concerns that, hey, what happens to my money if that doesn't reach out, or what happens to this? So they are very cautious about taking this. But the way the customer experience have been taken care by this neo banking are very commendable, which I think, right? They are making so easy. Like, I never thought, to be very honest, like I never imagined, to be very honest, that the way we used to go getting a check from a company or from anyone, and then going into a bank personally to the physical bank and putting that. But today I don't have to do that. I just have my banking app. I can scan that check, and then that money gets credited to my account.
Yeah.
Right? It saves so much of time, and it saves so much of hassle. So from that perspective, I still think the neo banking will definitely be there. But crypto, I think there is a lot of education required and still in the market, and the younger audience as well as the older audience. Because for me, like, the traditional way of investment, going to like doing in stock market or doing that is very known, because I have learned about it. But crypto is something that I still need to figure, because the regulatory of governments and everything is changing. So the dynamics are still there. But the way all these apps and the startups are doing the commendable job of educating of all the new changes that are happening in this area is easy to address that, and able to, means you get all the answers quickly when you put any kind of a questions out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, crypto definitely is something which is more skewed towards a younger audience at this point in time. Again, because their awareness about blockchain, their interest in tech, I think all those elements are driving that interest. But I think from normal day-to-day usage point of view, the neobanks and e-wallets have really helped out a lot. Yes, of course, there's going to be some legacy user issues, which not only in the older generation, but even in my case, there are certain things which I still like the feel of going to an actual physical banking location or a banking branch to get that sorted. But that adoption might take a little longer. But yeah, definitely things to look forward to in the coming years.
That personal touch will go away, and we will be digitally connected to apps and everything, because that's what COVID has taught you. Because I still remember, like, as a child, going with my dad to a bank, and then dad have the contact of the person who is to see regularly. He will talk to him personally, and then they will chit chat, and then that's the personal touch that we will soon get.
Sort of like an account manager, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that is something that we will miss out. But yeah, I think it's also for the betterment of the way we see how the technology is evolving, and definitely the way the blockchain and everything and the AI solutions are coming, that they are adding a lot of wonders in terms of the way the finance is been looked at the moment in most of these markets, to be very honest.
Yeah, agree. And since we already were on the topic of different generations adopting differently to new tech advances in the finance industry, I wanted to check with you your thoughts on when you compare the demographic dividend of fintech apps, right? What are some of the stark differences that you see, other than the ones we spoke about, in the way millennials and Gen Z use finance apps compared to older generations? Do you also see any noticeable user behavior differences among male and female users?
See, from my perspective, I think the way both the generation, the millennials and Gen Zs, were heavily invested in technologies. Right,
Yeah,
millennials grew up as a technology developed and adopted it as part of their lives.
yeah,
Uh, like we still remember having those mobiles phones with the keypad and dial-up internet, but with Gen Z's, they have been born into this smartphone world or the
yeah.
internet world, we can say. I think the way I see like Gen Z's definitely is more adopted to this, and the usage of Gen Z's are quite high. In particularly, I was looking at some stats for this, and what I noticed, like it's almost like this is the stats from the global, what I've seen in the global market of US, let's say. Like Gen
Mhm.
Z's kind of adopt like, or spends big power has like around 143 billion.
Wow.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to grow by 8x to 9x by 2022. So in this year itself, we are going to see that growth by 8x in that market. So definitely the same behavior I see in our market as well, where we think where I see like Gen Zs are more practical from their investment perspective, and as well more cautious, because the way the Gen Zs have been brought up, because they have seen their parents and everything, where they have seen their parents in the recessions time, right,
Yeah.
and the way the money management has been the concern. So from that perspective, I see Gen Zs are also cautious from taking that learning from their parents and everything, how to make the investment more thing. Definitely they go with their what the millennials say, means like if my dad recommends something about choosing this particular investment, I will definitely consider, but I would like to do it from my perspective, right? The similar way, I think the Gen Zs are also adopting to they take the recommendations, they influenced by the millennials, but they wanted to drive in their own way of managing it, and that's what is the difference that I see, and they're more practical in nature from the millennials perspective. That's what I have seen or noticed at the moment. Apart from male and female, I have not seen a much difference, to be very honest,
Mm.
but yeah, most likely the usage from the fintech perspective is heavily on the Gen Z sides. That's what I'm going to see incoming, and that's where most of the brands are also focusing there, that they how can they get at the early age, they can get the user to start with the investment mindset, right? Just starting with the basic concept of savings, how they can start is something important to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You mentioned, how there are cues that millennials and Gen Z generations could take from the older generations when it comes to investments and all that. But I think, yeah, there are certain traditional ways of investing which will remain the same and will be equally popular as they've always been. For example, property investments and so on and so forth. But where really the millennials and Gen Zs have an advantage is because they have this plethora of investing options now. Again, relating back to crypto, and then how just stock trading has become super easy through fintech and trading apps, and the understanding of that technology, or just being able to chart out what they want to achieve with such investment, has become easier for these generations, and I think that will continue. And the older generations, like me, possibly will keep learning as well as we go.
Yeah, sorry, just to add like an antidote, like I started my career in the financial broking firm back in 2007, right?
Oh, okay.
And I used to remember like the way the older guys used to come, sit for hours and speak to the different brokers that hey, they want to do this, or just calling them and saying that hey, buy this stock, or do this
Mhm,
for me,
mhm.
right? And over the period you have seen that has completely changed, right? And what I've seen most notice, this is from my family as well, that today all the kids have taken ownership of managing those from their day-to-day perspective. They take the guidance from the parents, like dad will be giving the guidance, but the operation bit, like just doing the trading and everything, is given to the hand in the hand of the younger generation. That's very quite, because I think the older generation can't get used to the technology. Means they are trying, but they think the younger ones can do much better job, and they can also advise and take their recommendation as well, that what they need to do, right? So the conversational is becoming intrude in on the dining table, where you're having this conversation with your, like, between the kids and that is quite unique to see that. Second thing, I would also see the way the adoptions from the Gen Zs, right, and also especially like the regulatory tech companies, the property tech, as you mentioned, right, the property,
Mhm.
real estate, and everything. The additional tech setups that are coming, which from the regulatory perspective or from the property tech perspective, they are also making the end buyer more smarter, right?
Mhm.
Because they are allowing to get this information passed to know before something that before I was considering to buy a property, I never knew that this kind of information available. I had to call up 10 agents and find out, hey, I'm doing this way, is that correct? I'm going for this loan, is that correct? But today, if Gen Z has to do that, he doesn't have to call up anyone. He can just go download an property tech app on his phone and get all this information on his end, and then
Yeah.
he can make
Yeah.
a decision.
Very true. Very true. Yep. That's the new way of doing it.
Yeah.
Now, Vishal, as a performance marketer, and obviously you've had your fair share of working with and growing fintech apps. What do you think are the three common mistakes you would find, early stage brands would be committing, and how can they stay away from making these errors? And
Yeah, I think in the last 3 years, it's sort of a new wave that we are seeing, all the fintech app startups, and some have really success doing that very well, and some did have failed from that perspective as well, which I've noticed or have worked with one or two as well. If I have to concise that in three things, what I've seen, one thing was like the team that comes with a very narrowed approach, that hey, I want to get from the day one, I want to hit that media dollar of cost of acquisition, right? Having that very bottom funnel approach has not scaled up very well in the market, or means just to show that hey, I have acquisition to show to any seed fund investor and everything to get additional fund. That approach has not worked well, or means they have either died down, or they have to rehash the whole approach and then restart the whole journey again. Second, what I've seen is the products that they have a very great idea, but from the technology perspective, means from the end product perspective, they didn't have made the progress, and they have launched the product in the market, which turned out to be like still the product, let's say, is in beta, and they have launched the marketing activities and bringing and getting the more users, had led to a lot of bad customer experience, which eventually lead to a lot of negative feedbacks coming on the social on all on the digital media side, right? Means like example, if you just get the app launch, and you can see the tons of feedback, the reviews have been put in on your Play Store and the App Store, and the rating that is given, that really impacts the longer scalability of your product from that perspective. Because today, people are people take those kind of feedbacks as a consideration, whether I should download this app or it doesn't make sense. I do personally, if I have to.
yeah,
uh,
plus with so many options available.
yeah, because like just recently, like in this COVID situation, I was just back in India. I was looking for a learning app for my kids. To be very honest, I used to see so many options, but I used to go with the feedback that was given by the parents, whether this app makes actually sense or not. That was
Hmm.
important, right?
Yep.
The same thing from that perspective. I've seen a lot of this banking app and everything which have started, but a lot of features have been missing, and they see negative reviews coming up. So that is really not a thing. So that is something that the marketing or the product team needs to consider before they see that okay, they have tested out, they have put in the pre-test where evaluation is done before they do a full launch of the product in the market. The third thing I would say, it's not a mistake, but definitely the brand or the team product team has not think a long term aspect, because the lot of technology evolution that is happening in the market, right? And the things are changing overnight from the tracking, measurement, and the privacy perspective. So a lot of app have failed in terms of having the right stack in place with the ad tech and the martech setup, right? So from that perspective, if they want to drive the whole measurement study out of that is not available, and that's where the growth has been limited at certain perspective. That's what I see. So if these three areas have been taken care of, I think if they don't do this kind of errors, then I think there is definitely a good future and a growth for them from the way the market is revolutionizing at the moment.
Yeah, I think product definitely is at the core of it. If you don't have a well-researched, well set up, well-built product, then it's a bit of a problem, especially when you're talking, financial options for users, because that whole ease and convenience of getting onto a particular platform, getting onto a particular app to do your financial day-to-day dealings is very important. Users need to feel that convenience, and users need to feel that safety. Now, since we've isolated three key areas where marketers or these apps could be making mistakes, I also want to understand, with app marketers choosing to favor mobile marketing for the obvious reason, can you shed some light on, let's say, 4 or 5 of the best practices to create more impactful data-oriented fintech marketing campaigns?
See, I think from the best practice perspective, this is something that we internally, or this is how we approach to our client as well. The 5 things that we focus on our side is making sure we understand the target audience, to be very honest. Like, from your product perspective, what is your target audience? So because a lot of times there is a lot of the understanding gap in from the client perspective, because a lot of startups have come from non-marketing background, or they don't have the right marketing team in place from that aspect. So giving them the guidance of how to understand the audiences from your targeting perspective, that is very core at it. Because if you don't have the right TG in mind, or TG in place, then whatever the media dollar you are putting out, it should not go for waste, right? Because already there is assumptions or a perception in the market that you spend X dollar in the market in your marketing campaign, there is 50% of that budget goes for waste. Which 50%, no one knows that.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, that is one thing that we emphasize more from an approach perspective. Second is keeping very simple and very straight forward approach, to be very honest. Like, having that the whole full funnel marketing approach, making each user journey impactful in that marketing campaign, because that's how you will able to see the scale and the growth that you require, and whatever the milestone that you set for yourself to achieving in that period, right? So it's very important that you have that full journey in place, and that full marketing approach. Because as I said earlier, like, the one mistake that I've seen in the past is having that bottom of the funnel approach, just going directly and just without giving the context, without making the brand consideration to the end customer, just asking them to convert. It's not going to be an easy cakewalk, to be very honest, because the end customer is getting more smarter and smarter, and they have the multiple choices. So you need to make them know why your brand is useful for them at the end of the day, right? So from that perspective, you need to have that thing in place. Second, make use of the right ads formats, to be very honest, because certain times that is a limitation that we face as well. Like, hey, I have banner ads, I don't have a video ad, what should I do? Those are the challenges, but definitely the things have a lot of evolved. So using the right ad communications, because that will really make the user to understand and interact with your brand, to be very honest, because at the end the ad messaging plays a key role in making drive the user engagement to be at the first place. Fourth thing, I would say, having the A/B testing, like having that mindset that, hey, that I am open for doing that A/B testing, right? Having that perspective of that, hey, if I spend, let's say, $100 on my marketing budget, at least I keep $20 aside to test out new things, or at least do some sort of an A/B testing to new opportunities, so that I can adapt to that. Right, that is very important, because if you are not testing and just consistently doing the same thing again and again, you are not scaling up, because you are not identifying the new opportunities that's how the users are interested in. So that's very important for you test. There are different A/B testing that we talk about. There is targeting, there is creative, and much. If we talk about, there may be so much of permutation and combination that we can talk about. So it's very important that you have those A/B testing mindset in place. So that is one thing that we focus as well. And the last I would say is more on the keeping more focus on the tactical activities that you bring in, like from your brand and from your additional promotion that you do, how you can centralize everything together instead of running in isolation. So like a lot of brands today do a lot of activities, like the brand team will do something and then the performance team or a digital team will do something else. Nobody has a understanding that who's doing what. So the one thing that we focus is like how we can bring that synergy and drive that integrated approach within the brand communications and the marketing digital marketing communication, so that from that we can benefit, and we can easily able to see what is a growth or the impact that is two marketing efforts are bringing on the end user acquisition or whatever the business KPIs are.
Yep, great. I think I agree with all the 5 points you've mentioned, and to just add a bit there, especially when it comes to testing and trying newer opportunities and not just keeping yourself in a closed environment when it comes to marketing is quite critical. And I think we pretty much every time have to educate clients or advertisers, to sort of open up and try various channels. And by channels, obviously I mean channels for acquisition of customers, because our platform is multi-channel. So we are always recommending and suggesting such things. And also the idea of having a well-crafted sync between your branding and performance activities, I totally agree, has to be very critical for all advertisers and brands, because you have to somehow make them work in tandem. It has to add value to each other, and the efforts have to somehow be combined rather than completely isolated, because then you don't know what you're cannibalizing. You don't know whether you're spending too much on the wrong activity, you're spending too little on the right activity, and so on and so forth. So yeah, makes absolute sense.
I go back long back, like Mudi, you and me are working for last couple of years together, and we have so many discussions when we are talking about our campaign briefs with you. And I really like one thing about your solution is about how it's cater in all the aspects from the marketing goal perspective. So today I want to tap into the to your solution to do the branding activity. I can do that. I want to bring more innovative approach to my brand communications to drive more interactive ad messaging. Your solution is ready where we can do those impactful ads with the gamifications, with more interaction in place and everything. And when it comes to the performance, definitely there is no say that you you are not in my media plans without having that performance drive to be happen, right? So from that aspect, and that is something that we learn from you guys as well, right? That we can't just have just one mindset of driving the numbers, but you also need to have the whole approach in driving the full funnel approach to be happening, to engage with different communications so that the users get interact. Like again, going to the same thing, like user needs to understand the brand before he can make a commitment. Otherwise you'll see the user coming in for a time being engaging, but he doesn't find the usage that much important and he drops off, or he just opt out. So from that perspective, we have seen a lot of times that without having that clarity in the marketing planning, you'll able to drive a lot of installs. You may be able to drive a lot of installs from different activity. You do incentivize play and you bring a lot of installs, but after a point of time, a huge uninstall coming up, because they just came in from that incentivized promotion that you did, but they didn't actually tag down with the brand itself. So you need to have that impact that they should stick to with the brand for a long time.
Yep, it's all about driving lifetime value, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's what you want to achieve. Now, talking about users, we are in a world which is very much fixated on privacy, right? And it's clearly a privacy first ecosystem right now. So in this type of ecosystem, Vishal, contextual ads are obviously gaining a lot of popularity. What do you think are the 3 to 4 key suggestions you would give on creating and measuring a good contextual ad strategy?
I think, yeah, it's a new beginning of the Web 3.0 where everything is very privacy focused now. We already seen a glimpse of what the like iOS and F14 has done in the market already. A lot of apps and a lot of brands are struggling to find out how they can do that. A simple and a very short answer, I would say, it's a very going back to the old way of doing the marketing, the way we used to do at the earlier before the whole Web 2.0 booming out, the whole social network coming up in place, and how we focus heavily on the whole contextual targeting aspect, right?
Yeah.
So that was very important. Just that from the measurement perspective, it's very important that in the current situation, we used to be like, we were able to get into the micro metrics because that information was readily available. But as the users are taking the control, and definitely that should be the way of the user having the control of the privacy of what communication that he see, what engagement from brand messaging that he should see. It's very important for now the brands to focus, or the agencies or partners like you, to help us to understand those macro metrics instead of those micro metrics, because sooner or later we won't have those micro metrics in place, and we'll have to focus more on the macro metrics that will help us to know the users and understand their need to do that very specific audience targeting that we want to do. So it needs to have that high level approach from the marketing perspective that help us to, and instead of going to individual person, now I can categorize into different cohorts and then look at that certain type of audiences. How do I do that? Messaging is very important, so that one messaging from that category perspective will become more important, and that's how it will help us to drive the scale, what I think at the moment. Because the as coming to 20 like still we have that opportunity in 2022, but coming 23, once Google taps into the depreciation of cookie happens, and soon we lose that data. We need to be ready with having certain models in place which help us to understand the user metric, and definitely it won't be as simple as what we have at the moment. So from that perspective is something that going to the back to the fundamentals of basic of doing what we used to do, doing contextual targeting, but at the same time start working on certain solutions partners, which will definitely become the sort of buzzwords in soon, which will be your having a DMP solution, like for example, like something like your solution like Mars help us do that, right? So have your own DMP solution, which you guys have also worked out, where you are building those predictive and different modeling into place where you can identify the audience in different categorization to help us to understand that, hey, if you're reaching out to this particular type of audiences, this is how we can do that with your solution, with your solutioning. And that's what we need to have that in place, where we can talk and also educate our brands as well about how to efficiently use their first party data with the solution what you have with your Mars, and build that synergy to drive more I would say more detailed marketing campaigns from that perspective. It won't be very targeted, but at least it will be quite useful because you are taking some data into consideration before you making that audience targeted for your campaign.
Yeah, and I think that practice has been set in motion with the iOS updates and all that, right? I mean, with regards to privacy and opting in for ads. And I think what has happened over the past couple of years is that we've been pretty impressed by the readiness of the industry to still deliver great value with these privacy issues taken very seriously. And I think similarly in the next year or years to come, when we are going absolutely cookieless, there's bound to be solutions ready and already tested to make sure that we are mitigating any such loss that is potentially going to happen. So yeah, totally agree with your points there as well. Now it's been a pretty detailed conversation so far. Let's change the tempo of our conversation slightly, and with this last section, we're going to go into a rapid fire kind of just one word answers, or a quick answer is what you can go with. So firstly, what are the 5 buzzwords for trends in 2022 fintech app marketing?
5 buzzwords. Okay. I think first would be having the right MMP solutions, which can help us with all the whole privacy targeting and everything, and the measurement aspects. That is one important. Second, what I hear is brand talking about the DMP solution, because as the first party data becomes very important, and how better we can use from that perspective, it's very important, and how better usage we can drive, right? Because as we are getting into the privacy thing, the consent is very important. So from that aspect, how much choices that we are giving back to the end user. Third would be creative management platforms, like getting into the CMP solutioning. It's there, but brands are taking that more seriously now, because that is the requirement at the moment from the app perspective, driving more different communications and more refreshed communications to the end user. Fourth would be the omni-channel aspect, because the whole as app becomes the forefront, but still users are there on the desktop and other devices as well. So how we can have that cross-device synergy in place. So that is the omni-channel, omni-tracking or targeting, that is important as well to understand. And fifth is, I think this started last year, is where the brand have started showing interest and asking a lot of questions about metaverse, because that's the new wave that we see as a whole, getting into the metaverse part. So brand are interested in knowing how they can be able to fit into this new change and the new requirement that the user have.
Perfect. A quote that you live by.
Quote I live by. This is a thing that I learned from my old mentor back in India, was keeping that L sign always on. Means that L sign is that learning sign, that you keep it always on. So every day you are learning something new. That's very important, because if you stop learning, you will stop your growth, to be very honest. So whether that learning is coming from any particular person, or any ways of working that you do, it's very important to keep that L sign on.
Yep, makes absolute sense. Okay, brilliant. Moving on, Vishal. Next up, I would want to understand what keeps you growth focused. How do you remain growth focused?
Yeah, as I said, from growth perspective, I think putting myself in the challenging situation, which I always like to be. So keeping the challenges that are coming from the brands, their campaigns, and specifically the way the new technology is getting evolved, it keeps me to keep hustling around and finding out new ways, and thinking out of for the campaigns or particular channels, how we can deliver those. So those are the areas where it keeps me very focused towards from the growth. And when we say the growth is two ways for me, especially one is making sure that my clients' business are growing from their digital aspect, what they want, what is their KPIs and everything. And second, from my organization perspective, from the happy marketer perspective, how we are getting that opportunities to work with different vertical and the big logo companies that we want to work with, and put out the good work. And second thing, have those partners campaigns that we want to drive, that can help us to get us rewards at the reward and the award at the end of the day. So yeah, those are the things that I focus on.
Yep, makes sense. That's brilliant. Now, one app engagement trend you're most intrigued by, we'd want to know about.
I think to be very honest, I'm very surprised with the way the TikTok boom is happening in the market, especially in the Southeast Asia. It all started with Indonesia, but now I can see in every market and every client seems to very interested. As we earlier understood that social channel was only for the younger ones, but now the way the channel has been used by the millennials and the older generation people as well, to advertise, to create those content from the advocacy perspective of particular, like let's take from the finance perspective, I see a lot of good content has been produced on that channels, and it's going viral as well.
Yeah.
So that completely is taken by surprise, which I was not expecting, but I see that's happening. Yeah, and most likely it's about how it has overpassed Facebook also in certain markets. So yeah, so that is where I'm more focused on today, looking how I can capture the trend on the TikTok side.
Great. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. While I'm not on TikTok, but definitely it's all around us, and you can really see the power that it is given to the younger generation, and how it is definitely building brand image for brands across the board. Lastly, one advice you would give to apps or app first companies starting out in the Southeast Asia market?
I think for me, as keeping myself as a putting myself in the customer shoes, I think more important is the product. If you think about from the customer's experience perspective, you get the right factors in the right experience into the app, and then you use the right marketing channels to drive that, it will successfully work for you. But it's very important for you to first get the core of the products itself. Without getting the right solution, the right product solutioning on the app side, if that is not done, the market research is not done properly, then it will be quite difficult for you to survive in the long run. So that is very important.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sorry. I totally agree. Definitely, we've discussed this earlier on in our conversation as well. The importance of having the right product and then focusing towards your audience and the direction of that product. So definitely one of the important factors. So thanks a lot. This basically concludes our questioning session, Vishal. I really appreciate you taking out the time today. And before we end this conversation, I just wanted to hear some parting thoughts that you might have.
And I just want to thank at the moment too, because this is going to be my first podcast, and Mudasir, thanks for giving me that opportunity to be part of this podcast session. Yeah, I feel just one thing to add is working with you guys as a partner is really helping us to upwards and onwards from the growing perspective in the Southeast Asia market. So keep bringing us those new product solutions that we can use for our clients and grow their business.
Awesome. Really appreciate the kind words there. And likewise, the partnership with Happy Marketer, Dentsu has been great, and we definitely want to take it to greater heights. So yeah, really good catching up until we are able to catch up face to face, which I'm sure will happen soon, Vishal. Yep, it's goodbye until then.
Thank you.
Over to you.
That was a deeply insightful session, Vishal and Mudasir, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. Almost 50% of Southeast Asia's population is underbanked. The vision of the fintech industry in the region is to close that gap. Like Vishal rightly said, yesterday's underbanked are today's growth audience and tomorrow's customers. We hope this session has given you valuable insights to avoid common mistakes and useful tips to craft a high impact fintech UA strategy for the year ahead. Stay tuned for our next episode and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter for more interesting resources on app marketing. For now, this is Team Mars signing off.